Cortisol is one of these things that can just seem too overwhelming to people, and they usually don't pay too much attention whenever the topic comes up. That being said, this hormone is a big issue in today's world, and most people don't really have balanced cortisol levels. Of course, most people kind of know what it is. They've heard terms like the stress hormone, or they've heard that it's bad for you, but that's not entirely the case. Hello and welcome back to our channel. Welcome to Wellness. Today we'll be debunking the mystery surrounding cortisol, and we'll go over what it is and how it can actually be one of the best things for your body if you manage its levels correctly. Before we continue, if you like these types of videos where we discuss different hormones, food choices, and practices, make sure to subscribe to our channel as we release new health-related content regularly, and that way you won't miss another video. With that said, it's time to get our cortisol levels in check, and let's see what this hormone is all about. What is cortisol? First off, let's start with what it is. As we already mentioned, many people know cortisol as the stress hormone. And while it is true that it's a hormone that gets released whenever you are stressed, that's not the entire story. Cortisol is what's called a glucocorticoid hormone. And don't worry, you don't need to know what that means. You simply need to know that this is a group of steroid hormones that affects your metabolism and organs like your muscles, liver, fat, and bones. These hormones also regulate inflammation in the body by suppressing it. And lastly, they also affect sleep cycles. So as you can see, these hormones aren't meant to be the bad depression monster everyone's trying to make cortisol sound like. No, cortisol, by its nature, is an essential hormone that plays a role in nearly every organ and tissue inside the human body. Some of its most prominent roles include regulating your body's stress response, managing your metabolism, suppressing inflammation, regulating blood pressure, regulating blood sugar, and controlling your sleep-wake cycles. So the hormone itself isn't anything bad. Instead, as with most things in health, too much or too little is what creates the problem. Higher or lower levels than what's normal for your body can have some real problematic harmful effects on your health. In today's world, it's rare that someone will have too low of a cortisol level. This is because the hormone gets released whenever you experience acute or chronic stress. The problem in today's world is that not everyone has built the right coping mechanisms to deal with stress. Ideally, it would go like this. You get stressed, whether it's at work or in your relationship, or in any social situation, and you either talk to a friend about it or go work out or go shopping or whatever. But in today's world, we've got cell phones, social media, alcohol, and medication. Instead of turning to friends, people turn to their phones. Instead of working out, people will pop a few pills. Because of this, people don't develop the skill of dealing with stress in a healthy way, and only get our little hit of dopamine, which leads to even more cortisol being released afterward. And this is a vicious cycle that it's crucial to break out of. The good thing is that there's plenty of good information out there on how to lower stress levels. Cortisol gets released whenever a stressful situation occurs. In these moments, your body releases adrenaline first and then cortisol to keep you on a high alert after the situation has passed. Whenever the hormone gets released, you also get glucose released from your liver to have access to quick energy in case you need it. The problem with that is that if you're under constant chronic stress, your body constantly does this and you're either always on high alert, which leads to severe heart complications, or your body releases too much sugar, which leads to diabetes and obesity, and so on. That's why managing your stress and lowering your cortisol levels is incredibly important, and a skill that most people lack in today's busy world. But of course, it's not as hopeless as it seems, and that's the whole point of this video. Let's go over 7 great ways to lower cortisol levels and keep yourself in better condition overall. Number 7. Learn to be more stoic. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to become a badass stoic movie character with no emotions when it comes to stress. It just means that you can start recognizing different stressful thoughts as just that, thoughts. Many people torture themselves whenever they do badly at work by thinking thoughts like, what if they fire me? I'll be left without a job and with no financial security. Who's going to watch my kids? And so on. These thoughts are directly linked to chronic stress. Instead, you can simply recognize the fact that you messed up. Learn from your mistake. Maybe even talk to your manager or boss, telling them that you're sorry and that you've learned what not to do again, and move on. That way you're actually doing something about the problem. You're being patient to see what the consequences are, and you're lowering your cortisol levels faster and more effectively. Basically, don't be a drama queen. Strive for being a more stable person in your emotions, as that is healthier. And don't go with the excuse, that's just the type of person I am. Identifying like this won't help you change it, it's just what you're used to. If you want to change it, you can. But anyway, being a bit more stoic can significantly lower anxiety and cortisol levels, so read up on it a little bit. Practice it for a while, and you'll be set. Number 6. Breathe. Now, a more quick-acting, short-term solution is breathing. Whenever we get stressed, we usually tend to take shallow breaths and speed up breathing as a result. If at that moment you direct your consciousness to good breathing, it will help with calming down. This doesn't mean any fancy breath work with specific timing or anything. It just means breathe fully, in through the nose, out through the mouth, just like you've been taught in school. This is one of the easiest stress reduction techniques and is used in many different stressful jobs. Breathing deeply helps stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, or the rest and digest system, which in turn lowers cortisol release by a significant amount. Nearly every calming practice or exercise, including yoga, tai chi, and meditation, uses deep breathing. So just try putting this technique into your stress relief toolkit, and you'll be good. Number 5. Build strong relationships. Whether it's your lover, your family, or your colleagues, human relationships can bring you the greatest happiness and the greatest stress. That's why keeping your relationship healthy and strong is an incredibly important part of any person's life. This isn't supposed to be a hard thing. Just get rid of the big drama in your relationships. Treat others like you want to be treated, and it should be enough on your part. Studies have shown that children with happy families have lower levels of cortisol in their bodies overall. In couples, it's been long known that fights raise cortisol and give you a spike in your levels before going back to normal when you make up. A study was done that made couples practice compassion and empathy more mindfully, and the results were staggering when it came to the drop in cortisol. Overall, relationships are one of the biggest stressors for people, and keeping an eye on them to keep them healthy can be a huge game changer in the stress management department. Number 4. Sleep well. Sleep is one of the things that nearly everyone neglects, while it's probably the thing we most need in our lives. Just think about it. You can go more time without water than you can without sleep. Prioritizing your sleep needs to become a must if you're serious about dropping cortisol levels. A study of full-time workers showed that those that work in well-planned shifts and sleep well are overall way healthier and with lower levels of cortisol, while the ones working night shifts or 2 jobs usually have a problem with managing stress and are either obese or too skinny depending on how they react to the stress itself. Having a good night's sleep refreshes you to the point that even when stress does come your way, you can react to it more adequately and maturely. When you are drained, everything you do becomes reactive and compulsive, which is the biggest setback to stress management. Getting better sleep can include not using a phone for a few hours before bed, sleeping in a dark, quiet room, and of course, getting enough time in with your sleep. Whether you're looking to overall improve your health or specifically drop cortisol levels, always make sure to check in with sleep first, as it's just that important. Number 3. Stress management. This is a common advice people give when it comes to dropping cortisol levels, but the problem is that the word stress management are actually quite misleading. In today's world, stress is everywhere, and it's impossible to get rid of it completely. So the solution isn't to manage your stress so that you have less of it. It's to learn emotional maturity so that you react to the stress in a different way. The idea of managing the stress you feel rather than the stressors around you. This means meditating more, having a healthy flow of your thought process so that whenever something stressful happens, you don't immediately start panicking, but instead you find the good in it. Realizing that it's just an issue that needs solving, and move on with your day. Of course, this is easier said than done, but on the bright side, this gives you full control of what happens within your body and how stressed out you become. Panic, drama, and stress are all linked, and if you can resist the urge to get panicked or dramatic in a stressful situation, you're already ahead of 90% of the population, and you'll be healthier for it too. Number 2. Right amount of exercise. Exercise when it comes to cortisol is a bit of a tricky subject. That's because depending on the level and intensity of the exercise itself, your cortisol levels can either rise or fall. Whenever you exercise, your cortisol levels get heightened for a while. But that's healthy stress that doesn't really deal damage to your body. It just gets you more alert while you're doing activities that require it. But after the exercise itself, your cortisol keeps dropping for hours after your workout is already over. Exercise also improves the quality of sleep afterwards, so it works on 2 fronts. It's a great tool to use as a complement to your cortisol dropping plan. That being said, overdoing it can raise your cortisol levels by quite a lot, and that's an issue many professional athletes have to deal with. But as long as you're keeping it mellow, you'll be just fine. Number 1. Diet. And last but not least, we have the most dreaded tip of all, diet. There's no health tip video that goes without mentioning diet. That's because it's just that important to eat healthy. In this case, a whole food, plant-based diet would be best. While eating meat can be really beneficial if you're trying to up your protein intake, when it comes to reducing cortisol levels, you have to cut it down a notch. It makes sense. Animals experience more stress, and the hormones responsible for stress often get released in the muscles. That's why we tighten up whenever we're stressed. Plants don't really have that, so when you're eating meat, you're at a higher risk of having high cortisol levels than if you're eating a plant-based diet. Plants are also incredibly rich in fibers, which are a big part of regulating your gut bacteria, which in turn helps regulate hormones. And as we've already established, today's video is all about regulating a certain troublemaking hormone. Diet is always a part of anything, and in this case, it can have a huge effect. Conclusion: keep in mind that this isn't a top 7 list. Each of these tips can be the key you're lacking to making your experience with cortisol smoother. Overall, you have to find ways to be more stable in your body, mind, and spirit. And these are some of the ways to do it. Well, that'll be all for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, as well as to subscribe to our channel to be notified of future content. Also, if you have any other tips on how to lower cortisol levels, make sure to tell us in the comments below. The idea is to grow a community of health-loving, happy people, so any tip can help. That being said, we'll be taking our leave, so have a stress-free day, and we'll see you next time.